The Blackhawks are expected to be pretty busy at the trade deadline. We all assume Jason Dickinson and Connor Murphy will be traded, but the other name that's pretty consistently in those trade rumors is Ilya Mikheyev. And it's a guy who I think the team has expressed some interest in bringing back. I think the fans would be on board with bringing him back. I know I would be on board with him coming back. I think Mario, you would as well.
Yeah, I think for you to move Mikheyev, it would have to make sense. And it would have to not only make sense to the idea of like what you're getting back for him, but also like how you're kind of filling that role in the lineup in the immediacy and down the road. I know he's expressed kind of feeling very comfortable in Chicago compared to previous stops in Vancouver and Toronto before, and feeling comfortable in the role that he played in the market and just kind of how his life is played out in the NHL. So, the factor of, Kyle Davidson likes to do right by players. I do think that could play into a factor, but the idea of, the hockey side of things, he's having a really good season. It's not the 20-goal season that he had last year, but I think that was kind of unexpected from him. He's had a really good season for the role and type of player he is, where he uses his speed, he uses his compete level, he uses his body size, physicality, and he's just tenacious on puck. He is their best penalty killer. So teams need that in the postseason. So I think if the Blackhawks wanted to strike while the iron's hot, if there's teams that were like going to quote unquote overpay for Mikheyev, I'd be fine with it, because I think they do have players that they could give opportunities to kind of fill that role should they move him.
Yeah, he makes just four million and change this year. I can't imagine him getting a massive raise. He could probably argue that he wants a little more money than Ryan Donato. For me, the concern with him would be bringing him. What would be the term? I don't know if I want to go anywhere beyond 2 years with him.
I wouldn't.
Yeah, he probably would be looking for more. Maybe though, what you could do is say, "Hey, you know what? We see your replacement down the road. We're going to give you, a million more than you're asking. They've got cap space. They've got to get to the cap floor. That so money won't be an issue. So maybe they trade. Hey, we're going to give you a little more money for shorter term, and hopefully both teams can come to an agreement on that. If that doesn't happen, and they decide they want to move him at the deadline, I went back and looked at some of last year's trade deadline moves that seemed similar to Mikheyev, and I would say that probably all these guys have a higher profile than Ilya Mikheyev does. But just for the sake of conversation, Brandon Tanev was traded to the Jets for a second-round pick. Andrei Kuzmenko was traded to LA for a third and half retained salary. They also sent a seventh-round pick with him. And then Detroit traded Yanni Gourde to Tampa for a fourth. So anywhere between a second and a fourth, they're probably going to have to retain on Murphy and Dickinson to move them and get any sort of value. So that's another factor we got to look at too.
Yeah, they only have 2 retention slots available. So if the higher priority trades right now are moving Dickinson and Murphy, if you retain on both, then any other trade you're doing for the team that you're sending a player to, you're likely going to be negotiating in a fashion where you kind of have to do money in, money out, make things equal. So I think if I wouldn't say a Mikheyev trade would be first or second priority at the deadline for the Blackhawks. I think he would be, if anything, third priority. So if you make those 2 moves with Dickinson and Murphy, I don't know if a team is going to say, yeah, we want Ilya Mikheyev at $4 million and we'll give you equal value roster player or something like that. I don't know if that would be what the Blackhawks would want, or if a team would want to entertain doing that. So let's say for argument's sake, they make a Murphy or Dickinson trade that emulates that, where maybe Murphy or Dickinson brings back a NHL rostered or under contract player that is a couple million or something, and that way the team acquiring doesn't have to eat the entirety of Dickinson and Murphy's $4 million. So then you have some a retention spot for Mikheyev. If you're retaining 50% on him, making him a $2 million and change player, I think the price to get back from him, I think a third makes sense, because the Blackhawks gave up. We looked it up. It was a 4th-round pick to get Mikheyev and a 2nd-round pick and the UFA rights to Sam Lafferty from Vancouver. And I think immediately everyone saw that deal and was just like, wow, that's great business by the Blackhawks. So I think if you were to get a third for Mikheyev, that would be fair. But as we've kind of had in these conversations about, who you move, does a third make sense? Like, is that enough to make a deal? I would be okay with it, like I said, because I think you have a guy like Oliver Moore, who we mentioned on the podcast recently, as being a guy that you could give that opportunity to in the lineup, playing him on the PK and stuff. But is it enough that the Blackhawks feel like their value for getting a 3rd-round pick and giving a roster spot opportunity to a younger player is enough, or would a contract extension to have a guy like Mikheyev be more of worth their time?
You know what? I just don't want to trade him. I mean, if a team's going to get crazy and give you a second or a first for him, I'm listening. But I would even be comfortable saying, you know what? Let's just go into the summer and we'll figure it out, like they did with Ryan Donato. And I know there was a lot of consternation about Donato, and it was like, oh, is this going to get done? Is this not going to get done? I think you have some time to work that out with Ilya Mikheyev. Again, I don't think he's a guy trying to break the bank or anything. And I look at what the Hawks have. Is another 3rd-round pick, is it going to come out to be Ilya Mikheyev and what he could bring to this team for the next couple of years? Because you still are going to need, as good as we feel about these prospects, you're still going to need some veterans to fill out roster spots while they develop. You cannot, as Mark Bernard told us earlier this week, at any level, go all kids. You just can't. You can't. And especially if you're losing Dickinson, you need to have a veteran that can be your go-to defender, right? Shutdown defender. Preferably that would be a center. But if Mikheyev's here and Oliver Moore, who you mentioned, slots in at center, that can become a pretty decent defensive line with some offensive upside. I'm in no hurry to trade Ilya Mikheyev for a 3rd-round pick. I'm in no hurry to move him at all. I'd even take it into the summer and negotiate and see what you can get done. I think he's valuable. I think he's good. I think he wants to be here, and I think both sides can work it out.
Yeah, I think there's a win in both scenarios, where you keep him, he's happy with the organization's happy with him. He plays an important role. He gives more time to some of those young players to find their footing at the professional level, and that kind of aligns with the rebuilding plan and what Kyle Davidson wants to do for these young players. Or if you move them, you give an opportunity to someone to step up faster if they're worthy of it. So I think, for me, if you are moving him, I'm not expecting anything big. Like you said, if a team gets crazy and gives you a 1st-round pick from him, sure, yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I mean, if best case scenario you're getting like a 4th or something like that, or a mixture of mid picks or prospect, it's not. I don't think it's that worth it. But it just depends on how Kyle Davidson's, as he's expressed, wants to give opportunities to young players. How many opportunities and how geared into that mindset are you?
We're going to find out March 6th at 2 p.m. when the NHL trade deadline hits.